To channel my anger for this video, I've been staring at the pound for pound list on the UFC ranking website for the past 10 minutes. Just letting myself build up in rage, okay? I don't understand the pound for pound list. I understand some of the positions on there, but then other positions on the pound for pound list just don't make any sense to me whatsoever, okay? Towards the top half of the pound for pound list, I'm pretty sure they've got it just about right. But when we get to the second half and the middle area of the pound for pound list, it just gets a bit confusing to me, okay? And I'm going to start by saying something immediately. Jon Jones is literal scum of the earth. I don't like Jon Jones. He's done inexcusable things in his life. I don't respect him in any way as a man. But if Jon Jones is on the pound for pound list, he's number one on the pound for pound list. If you want to remove Jon Jones from that list because he has been inactive, then remove Jon Jones from that list because he's been inactive. Do not lower Jon Jones down the pound for pound list due to inactivity. That makes zero sense. His accomplishments are his accomplishments, no matter when they happened. I think you should be removed from the list if you're not fighting, and as soon as you come back to fighting, you should be put at the top again, or put reasonably around where you were before you were taken off of it. If Jon Jones is on there in general, regardless what you think about him as a person, I don't like him as a person. I think he's actually hellspawn, in all honesty, and I'm not using that too leniently. I'm being pretty literal about that. I think he's quite literally hellspawn. He's the number one pound for pound fighter on earth if he's on the pound for pound list. And I say this because on Tuesday, last Tuesday I do believe, the last ranking change of the pound for pound list there was, Dustin Poirier moved above Jon Jones on the pound for pound list. That's inexcusable to me. That is literally inexcusable to me. Remove him or put him at number one where he belongs. And right now, people are talking about him versus Stipe Miocic in July. That's what the UFC wants to do. They want to make Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic on the pound for pound list in July. How can you have the greatest light heavyweight of all time, and in some people's minds, the greatest fighter active in the sport right now of all time, remove like GSP out of the equation because of his accomplishments across multiple weight classes and stuff like that. If you want to say that Jon Jones, which a lot of people do say, is the greatest fighter of all time, and he's still active in the sport, you can't have him below, and I'm going to find the rankings right now, you just can't have him below Dustin Poirier. You can't have him below Max Holloway. You can't have him below Oliveira, Ngannou, Adesanya, Volkanovski, Usman. Remove Jon Jones in general. I think what they're doing right now is just sort of dragging the name of Jon Jones, and I get it. I'd love to trash the name of Jon Jones. I'm all in favour of it. But if we're being legitimate here, and if we're trying to have an accurate pound for pound list, you can't slowly move Jon Jones down the list whilst Dustin Poirier lost his last fight. Let's move him above Jon Jones as a reward for losing his last fight. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. That's only one reason why I don't like the pound for pound list. If Jon Jones is on there, he's number one. If you want to remove him, remove him. Where does that end? Does Jon Jones, Glover Teixeira's number 9. He's going to move up if he beats Jiri Prochazka, and you know he is. Are you telling me that if Jon Jones has not fought, by the time Glover Teixeira defends against Jiri Prochazka, is Glover going to move above Jon Jones on the pound for pound list? Like that makes any sense whatsoever? How would that make any sense? And that probably will end up happening. If Jones doesn't fight for another year, is there a time where Aljo starts jumping above him? Figueiredo starts jumping above him? It makes zero sense. I move on to other problems that I have with the pound for pound list. I truly believe the best fighters on the pound for pound list should have wins over other great fighters on the pound for pound list. Otherwise, that pound for pound list, God, someone tally how many times I'm going to say pound for pound list in this video, because we're reaching the hundreds already, I do believe. If you're so high up the pound for pound list, you should have other wins in your career against other fighters on that list. Usman is number one. Now, I honestly do agree with Usman being number one if Jon Jones is out of the equation, which it seems that he is, by the way they're treating him in the list. So if you remove Jon Jones, Usman should be number one. Completely agree. Volkanovski should be number two because he hasn't lost in the UFC. Adesanya has. Upper weight class, whatever you want to say. It means something to lose within the UFC where Volkanovski is not. Volkanovski also beat better names that were already on the pound-for-pound list than Israel Adesanya did. I know Whittaker was quite high up, but Holloway is still quite high up for very good reason, in my opinion. And Volk has 2 wins over him, regardless of how much people don't want to accept the rematch's result. It's true. Volkanovski beat Holloway in the last 3 rounds and won the fight 48-47. Either way, Volkanovski at number 2, Israel Adesanya at number 3. And Ngannou at number 4 makes sense because Miocic was so high up. There was a time when DC was really high up. Stipe beat DC in the last 2 fights, and Ngannou comes in and beats Stipe. Stipe was the greatest heavyweight of all time. It makes sense. But Usman's number 1. Volkanovski beat Holloway twice. He's at number 6. That's why Volkanovski's so high up the pound-for-pound list. Israel Adesanya beat Robert Whittaker in his career, who's at number 15. And that makes Israel Adesanya quite high up the list as well. And when he first beat Whittaker, Whittaker was very high up the list. Volk also beat Aldo when he was on the list, when he came up. After he beat Mendes, Aldo, I believe, was somewhere towards the teens of the pound-for-pound list. And Volk beat him. Then he beat Holloway, who I believe was in the top 4 or something like that. Who has Usman beaten in the pound-for-pound list past Woodley? Woodley was quite high up, I understand. You've got to have Usman's opponents, if they're so good, to make Usman number 1. You've got to have them on the list. You've got to have Covington on the pound-for-pound list. You have to, at this point. I honestly don't think just having a belt makes you on that top 15 list. I really don't. And I also don't understand how Dustin Poirier is so high up. Holloway is high up. I think he shouldn't be as high as he is, in all honesty. I don't think Poirier should be as high as he is. But it is a fact that Poirier did beat Holloway, who is high up. So it does make sense that Poirier should be on there. McGregor was very, very high up as well. For whatever reason that may be, he was inactive for a very long time. Didn't see his name plummeting like Jon Jones's, and he didn't accomplish anything near what Jon Jones accomplished in his career either. But either way, I don't think Moreno should be on there. Moreno don't belong on there. Okay? Aljo arguably don't belong on there. Okay? Jan Aljo, like, maybe at the very, very lower end, just being a champion. Well, we got to put him in the top 10. That don't really make too much sense to me, I'll be honest. It really doesn't. I get Glover's in a decent position. He beat Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz had a win over Israel Adesanya. I understand. But where's Covington, man? I understand that people don't like Colby Covington. But the fact is, he's beaten really good names. RDA is still proven to be a worthy contender in the lightweight division with an amazing performance against Renato Moicano. He has a win over Paul Felder as well, whatever the situation might be. RDA is still somewhat legit in the sport. Covington beat him. He beat Maia. I think he beat Damian Maia when Maia was number 2 in the world. He beat RDA when RDA was number 1 in the world. He beat Woodley when Woodley was like number 5 in the world or something like that. He beat Masvidal when he was number 6 in the world. Something along those lines. If he is having razor close fights with Usman, he belongs on the list. If Usman's number 1 pound for pound, and a guy who, according to the scoring criteria of MMA, regardless of what your opinion is, Instagram comment section after these fucking fights that happen with close decisions, you got to beat the champ to beat the champ. I don't think Covington did enough. He got dropped, like it isn't a round by round scoring system. Either way, according to the scoring criteria of MMA, Covington should have been ahead 3-1 against Usman going into the 5th round before he lost, and he lost. The last 2 shots that Usman landed on him were illegal blows to the back of the head, but we'll ignore it. In the rematch, it was a draw, according to the criteria of scoring in MMA. Covington, in a world where the scoring is followed, went to a draw with Usman, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He's not even on the list. But beating Covington for Usman makes him #1. I understand he has a lot of defenses, but who are you defending against? You can't have Usman at #1 if no one he's beating, since beating Woodley, as a defending champion, is anywhere on the list. Oliveira's beaten Poirier. He's beaten some pound-for-pound guys. He just beat a guy who they have way up the pound-for-pound list. He's below Ngannou, but Ngannou beat Stipe. It's so hard to do this because you go down a chain of correcting yourself as you go through some of this stuff. But one thing I know, certain contenders belong on there over certain champions, man. Figueiredo and Moreno. Flyweight, I respect it as a division. I get it doesn't get as much respect as some of the other divisions in the world. I do think bantamweight deserves its shine. I think if there was a more defending champion, they would be a lot higher up the list. Like if there was a bantamweight champ like Jan who defended against Aljo and then defended against Dillashaw, he would be in the top 5 area of the pound-for-pound list and stuff like that. But flyweights, Moreno, I think, won 4 in a row. And one of them was a draw to Askarov. And then he got a belt. Like, I respect the flyweight division, but it just simply is too shallow to be hogging up spots, in my opinion. I think that's where the main mistake is made. I genuinely wouldn't mind if Moreno wasn't on that list and Figueiredo was, like, below Whittaker. I mean, think about the legacies that Figueiredo, beat Benavidez twice. Those are good wins. Alex Perez wouldn't even be top 30 pound for pound. Let's be real. Top 50. Wouldn't even be in that area either. Who else did he beat? Pantoja. It's a good win. It's a good win. Anywhere near the top of the pound-for-pound list. Whittaker's beaten really good opponents. You know? Till, Cannonier. God, don't forget good names now. Who else did he beat? God. Gastelum is good. He had a razor-close fight with Adesanya in the rematch that I think, according to the rules of MMA, it's not an I think. According to the rules of MMA, he beat Adesanya in the rematch. He's all the way down at number 15, below the Figueiredos and the Morenos of the world, who happen to go on a 3-fight win streak and get a title shot because of it. Neither one of them beat Cejudo or DJ in their division, the guys who held real pound-for-pound value. I don't understand it, man. It really does confuse me. There's more I want to go into. And I think it should be based on accomplishment. But it should be based on accomplishment against who? Against who is your accomplishment? That's what should be a bigger part of the pound-for-pound list than it already is. It seems to be like, well, he's got this many defenses, and he's got this many defenses, and this guy's got this many defenses, but who against? What was their climb like? You know what I mean? I don't get it. Just because you're a champ shouldn't put you on that list of top 15 fighters. Whittaker went through Jacare, Romero twice. I don't agree with the second fight decision. I think it should have been a draw. I think Whittaker did enough in the 3rd round against Romero not to make it a 10-8, because if you look back at the fight, he actually didn't get dropped in the 3rd round. I know it was a bit of a push and a reach, but on paper, he didn't get knocked down in the 3rd round. He never touched the ground with a hand or anything like that. He went down, staggered a bit, and popped right back up, shoulder barged Romero, and got right back to scrapping. But he beat Romero on paper twice. Jacare, Brunson, top-ranked guys in his division. Darren Till, Cannonier, Gastelum. I mean, the list goes on for Whittaker. Uriah Hall, who's still in the rankings. Brad Tavares, who's still in the rankings. Rafael Natal was ranked in the top 15 when Whittaker beat him as well. I mean, Whittaker has beaten an incredible amount of names. He deserves to be higher up than, oh, well, you know, he submitted Perez. You know? Hey, he choked out Alex Perez. Oh, Alex Perez. Oh, wow. A defending champ, because he beat Alex Perez. Moreno shouldn't be up there either. I don't care if you touched gold compared to someone who... Whittaker's a former champ. Who's a better former champion in the UFC? Right now, answer me this. Who's a better former champion in the UFC? Robert Whittaker or Brandon Moreno? It's Whittaker. Why is Moreno above him? Whittaker should be above Figueiredo, above Moreno. Covington should be above maybe one of them. Maybe above Moreno, not above Figueiredo. I can understand that. Covington's never officially held an undisputed world championship like Whittaker has. I get it. It just needs to make more sense to me. And it's not making sense to me. It's just not making too much sense. And I'm seeing Jon Jones' name drop. And eventually it's going to drop below Figueiredo. And then we're going to have that conversation. And then I think the people making the list need to put their personal favourite fighters aside and just look at it based on credentials. A very close loss should be valued more than some pathetic wins over contenders. I really do believe that. How can the #1 pound-for-pound guy in the world, Kamaru Usman, at #1, who I believe should be #1 if Jones isn't in the mix, which right now he isn't because he's inactive and he shouldn't even be on the list. If Usman's #1 in the world, which I agree with, how is the guy who went to a razor-close fight with him nowhere on the list? Nowhere. If that win is enough to solidify the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and on the scoring criteria of MMA, the guy that he fought arguably should have drawn with him, how is that guy that he took on, that arguably should have drawn with him, nowhere on the list? Because Brandon Moreno subbed Figueiredo once. It don't make no sense. Like and subscribe. I don't know. I've tried to cover everything I needed to cover here. But it just doesn't make sense, man. And I'm glad the women aren't even on that list, to be honest with you. I'm glad they separated it, because otherwise we'd have to hear, oh, Rose is above fucking Ngannou and all this shit. Like, God. Gaethje was on the list at one point. That's not an over-exaggeration either. I think Gaethje was number 15 a couple of weeks ago. What has Gaethje done? He beat Ferguson. Well done. Tell me what he did other than beat Ferguson that's so pound-for-pound worthy. He was like comfortably in the teens of the pound-for-pound list a month ago. Covington's never touched that list. Whittaker's number 15 barely. What has Gaethje done other than beat Ferguson? Lost to Poirier. Dominated by Habib. Lost to Alvarez. Oh, he beat Michael Johnson and James Vick. Edson Barboza's a great win. Cerrone. I know he's number 16. I don't know where the outside of that area is. I know he's number 16, Gaethje. I just know he is. And I know Covington's like 18 or 19 or something to make way for like Dillashaw, who beat Sandhagen at number 17 or some shit like that. Aldo should be on there. Aldo arguably should be on there as well. Fuck Moreno off the list. Figueiredo barely should be on there. Jones should be removed for inactivity. That gives us 3 positions to work with on the pound-for-pound list. Can we chuck in Covington? Can we chuck in Aldo? And can we put Figueiredo at 15, maybe? Huh? That's all I've got, though. I've forgotten something I wanted to say, but I don't care anymore. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Goodbye.